Well, everybody seems to be happy. I'll stop that. I'll tell a joke. Seriously, though, I'd like to tell you how I got into magic. As a young boy, I used to take my father's cigarette papers, tear them up, and restore them. My father didn't like it until he saw me do the trick. Then he gave me 10 cents a week allowance. This is a trick slightly enlarged. A red piece of paper so that you may see it better. I tear the pieces once. I put them together, I tear again. That's twice. I put them together, I tear them again. That's thrice. Now, if I tore them again, that would be fierce. While everybody's watching and wondering, it's already done because, lo and behold, there's the piece of paper completely restored, much to the amazement of myself, and I sincerely hope to you people. I'll explain how this is done. First of all, you use two pieces of paper that are alike. One you roll into a small ball, billet, ballot, or pellet, depending on what part of the country you're from. And you hide this. Now, the place I hide it is right behind this lapel. Of course, I have to stand this way to keep it from falling out, but it looks very manly. Then I pick up a second piece, an exact duplicate of this, and I tear it once. Then I tear it again. That's twice. Then I tear it again. That's thrice. Now, you may recall at this stage that I said something about fierce. That's when the dirty work comes. That's when my hand goes up, touches the lapel of my coat, apparently merely a gesture, actually get possession of this duplicate piece of paper. Now, in order to do the trick, all you have to do is switch the torn pieces here in the right hand for the whole piece of paper. I dropped it. Well, in a case like that, don't worry. Just say a prayer, and if you've lived a good, clean, wholesome life, the little piece of paper becomes completely restored again. And that's how the trick is done. Thank you. I'll throw that away and do a classroom trick. This is what we call a classroom trick. This is scientific. A couple of tumblers made of a special plastic unknown to science. Would you examine, please? Would you examine? Notice anything unusual about them? Well, the inside is a bit deeper than the outside. The inside is a trifle deeper than the outside. Inside is deeper than the inside's deeper than the outside. They appear to be to the same size. Actually, it's not so. The one in my right hand is smaller than the one in my left hand, which is a bit smaller than the one in my right hand, which is smaller than the one in my left hand. Allows a very curious thing to happen. They appear to be the same size, but as I said, each one is smaller than the other one. If I take this one, being smaller, it falls right through, you see. And this one being smaller than that one, likewise falls right through. Each one falls through the other one. I can do this all day because each one is smaller than the other one. Each one's smaller than the other one. Were you to measure the mouth of this tumbler with a most precise measuring instrument, a micrometer, and with that same micrometer measure the mouth of this one, then go back and forth making alternate measurements, you'd find that every time you'd make a measurement, the distance between the jaws of the micrometer would close microscopically, or very, very small. But they would decrease until the jaws become closer and closer together as each measurement is made, till finally the jaws touch and the tumblers completely disappear. I'd be very happy to do it for you, but it takes too long. So I'll put that one away. I'd like to introduce a couple of table knives, Victorian design. I'm American design. Would you examine, please? On the blade, you'll find a sharp side and a dull side. Thank you. This is the sharp side, this is the dull side. It says Nippon on here. And 10 fingers. Would you examine, please? And notice that's very pleasant. Would you examine, please, too? That's even pleasanter. Notice there's no sticky stuff, epoxy, or glue on my fingers. Well, this is what magicians call adhering fingers. Notice the flesh deeply embedded into the blade of the knife. Flesh deeply embedded into the blade of the knife. Imagine walking into a supermarket like this. Imagine walking out. Now, would you grasp the handle of the knife firmly? Notice the intensity of the magnetism as the blade is withdrawn from being deeply embedded into the flesh. Would you grasp the handle of this knife, please? And now, much harder, upside down. I used to practice this when I was a lad by standing on my head, but as I grew older, I learned it was much easier to reverse the knives. Slight nervousness that you see is really not nervousness. This is the magnetic field going through my body. Notice again the flesh deeply embedded into the blade of the knife. Would you touch my wrist gently, please? that demagnetizes the entire right side of my body, allows the knife to fall from being deeply embedded into the flesh. Would you touch this gently? Again. Oh, you know what it is? It's the wristwatch. Sets up a counter-electromagnetic field. I'll have to use force. And that, my friends, is the story of the magnetic knives. Well, your grand audience, you didn't believe that spoof and bluff about my having magnetic fingers, did you? It's not really true. What I have is a thread around my neck. You don't see it, and then at the finish I push forward on the blades and the knives fall, and unseen falls the thread. I'll show you what I mean. Here's another object. This is a lead pencil without an eraser. The Victorians didn't make mistakes. Instead, it has a brazen ferrule on the end. That's Victorian for brass tip. Would you rub your finger over the end, make sure that it's quite all right, quite smooth? That's non-magnetic. Thank you. Now, in my pocket, I have an invisible spool of invisible thread. This is the invisible spool, and this is the end of the invisible thread. With your left hand, grasp the end of the thread, please. Whoop. Fingers down, if you don't mind. That's right. Whoop. Here it is, right here. Now, just hold that, and stay that way. Don't let go. I'll unravel a few inches, take both hands, break this right in the middle. That's beautifully done. I'll put away the, oh, I should have asked you to take the end of the thread. Now, whoop, get it? Now, good. Now, what this is what magicians call a horizontal lift. It's this way. Now, if I rest the pencil on the invisible thread like this, now you lift up just a trifle, just a trifle. You see, I can pass my hand above, I can pass it below, but I've just never touched the thread. Now, would you lift up a little bit higher, please? Whoop. Thread broke. Hang on to it, whatever you do. Hang on. I'll get the ends here. Bring your hands in just a little bit so I can tie a knot here. It's very hard to tie an invisible knot in an invisible thread. You can see the knot. You can see it. So, but I don't think you see it in the front, did you? You don't see it out there. Good. Now, once again, this varies the routine just slightly. The idea is to make this stand in an upright position. Now, when this slides along and it hits the knot, it jumps over it, as you can see. Now, would you lift up, keep your hands level with each other, lift up very, 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 a little higher, so you can stand right up. That's high enough. Keep your hand level with hers. Otherwise, it'll slide off. Now down, now up again. Now down all the way. Now, whatever you do, hang on to that stuff, because that stuff cost me $2.50 a foot. That's the story of the invisible thread. Thank you. I'll put away the thread in my pocket. Good. Now, one question, please. You know, I saw Houdini as a small boy. That's not a question, that's a statement. That's incorrect, too. As a small boy, I saw Houdini. That's worse. That's a dangling participial phrase. I was small, I saw Houdini, he was older, and I looked at him. Anyway, one of the things he did was with a couple of silken handkerchiefs. And he tied these into a square knot. Now, if you've ever been a Boy Scout, Girl Scout, Brownie, Fudger, whatever they call them, you'll know that a square knot goes up this way. If the ends cross, it's a granny knot. Would you pull on the ends, please? Just give a slight tug. That's fine. That gets our audience participation into the act. Would you do the same, please? That's fine. These are so tightly tied that it's impossible to take them apart. But I'll call on the spirits. Now, do you mind if I use your head for a spirit? Or never yet. Just hold your hand out. Like this, please. And would you hold your... It sort of dresses up the stage and makes it pretty, see? Now, in lieu of a spirit cabinet, I use the two girls' hands. I now call on the spirits. Scotch and soda. Are you ready? Spiriti miei infernali obedite. I think they've done their work. Let's see. They have. Thank you. I'll explain how that's done, or better yet, I'll let you see how the spirits work in the dark. Of course, you don't see spirits, even in the light. But again, we tie a knot. Again, would you like to pull on the ends, please? Thank you. That gets more audience participation. These are now so tightly tied that not even a giant could get these apart without ripping the handkerchiefs into shreds. So I'll call on the spirits. Rather than call on them, I shall whistle them up, or up-whistle them, to be correct. Spirits are now at work. Spirits are now at work. you. Thank you. You're really a lovely group, and I'd like to introduce now my 52 assistants. 52 playing cards. Let's count them one at a time. I think they're all there. All there. And would you like to examine the deck? In the meantime, I'm going to introduce another prop of mine. Just look at them. They're quite all right. Good. This is a very, very old trick that was done many, many years ago. This will conclude my little performance at this time, which means it's the end. And I'll give these a little shuffle and spread them before you so that you can see that they're thoroughly mixed. Now, would you do me a favor? While my head is turned away, I want you to take two cards that are adjoining. That's Victorian for one stuck next to the other. I'll keep my eyes shut, and I'll turn away. Have you got the two cards removed from the pack? Give one to her, please. Now follow my instructions. Show the cards to the audience. Have you done that so they can enjoy this trick also? Have you done that? Now turn the cards and look at them yourself. I'll keep my eyes closed. Remember them. Don't forget them, because the success of this trick depends upon you remember the cards. Now turn them face down, please. Put your card in the center of the pack face down. Whoop. Leave it protrude. That's Victorian for sticking out. Put your card on top. Thank you. Two cards returned to the pack together, and because they were taken from the pack together. Now this is where you watch me like a hawk. I give the pack a bit of a shuffle. The reason I give it a bit of a shuffle is I don't want to mix too much. And I'll call your attention to a couple of objects. This is a table knife, and this is a press notice from Denver. Would you examine it, please? Just open it up. Thank you. There are two of them. One's safety first. Just hold one of them, please. Thank you. We'll throw the other one aside. Now, would you do me a favor, please? Would you show that to everybody, that there's no deception? I mean, open it wide. Make sure that there's no deception. Thank you. Now, I envelop, which means wrap up the pack thus. Don't I do this neatly?
Very nice.
Like an elephant getting off a bicycle on a muddy day. Now the object of the trick is to thrust the blade of the knife into the pack between the two selected cards. The only way I can miss is if they became separated during the shuffle, hence the light shuffle and the silent prayer. I usually use a drum roll for this, but the drummer's out for the moment, so we use our imagination. The idea is to plunge the knife between the two selected cards. I almost forgot the names of the two selected cards. May I have yours? Two of diamonds and three of diamonds. Now, if I'm right, this is where I pray. If I'm right, this comes the dramatic part, the nervous part. If I'm right, the three of diamonds should be above the blade. It is. And the deuce of diamonds beneath it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming up here. You were marvelous. Thank you all. Thank you very much.